It's 4:47 p.m. on a Thursday. You're sitting across from your manager in a glass-walled conference room. You've been waiting for this meeting for 3 months. You've thought about what you'd say. You've rehearsed it. You stayed late. You led the Q3 project that nobody else wanted. You covered for 2 people who quit. You didn't complain once. Your manager slides a paper across the table. 3%. Not a conversation. Not a negotiation. Just a number. Already decided somewhere else, by someone else, weeks before you walked into this room. You nod. You say thank you. You go back to your desk. And later that night, lying in bed, you do the math. 3% of $62,000 is $1,860 a year. That's $155 a month before taxes. After taxes, maybe $108. You worked harder than you ever have, and the number that came back was $108 a month. Something doesn't add up. And that feeling, that quiet, nagging sense that the math doesn't work, that's not you being ungrateful. That's you noticing something real. Let's stay with that feeling for a moment. You've been told your whole life that effort leads to reward. Work hard. Show up. Produce results. The money follows. But at some point, maybe this year, maybe a few years ago, you started noticing that it doesn't quite work that way. You look around at your office. The person next to you, hired 8 months ago, doing a similar job. You trained them. You know what they're capable of. And somehow, through a slip of conversation, through a forwarded email, through the kind of accidental transparency that happens in open plan offices, you find out they're making $9,000 more than you. They weren't better. They just negotiated differently. Or the market shifted. Or the company needed someone fast. Or you look at your own trajectory. You've been at this company for 4 years. You've gotten raises every year. 3%, 2.5%, 3% again. Compounded. You've gotten maybe 12% total over 4 years. But you looked up your role on LinkedIn last week. The market rate for your position is 30% higher than what you make. So you've been rewarded. Technically, the numbers went up, but you've also been falling behind. Both things are true at the same time, and nobody told you that was happening. Here's what most people don't understand about salaries. Your salary is not a direct measure of your performance. It is the output of a system. And that system has rules that have almost nothing to do with how hard you work. Let's start with the first rule most employees never see: the salary budget pool. Every year, before your review even happens, your company's finance department allocates a fixed percentage of total payroll for raises. In most mid to large companies, this number is between 2 and 4% of total compensation costs. That's not a coincidence. It's not based on how the team performed. It's based on what the company can afford, what keeps people from leaving, and what looks reasonable on a spreadsheet. Let's say your team has 15 people. Total payroll is $1.2 million. The salary budget pool is 3%. That's $36,000 to distribute across 15 people. Your manager didn't set that number. HR didn't set that number. That number came from somewhere above both of them. Now your manager has a choice. She can give most of it to top performers and give low performers nothing. Or she can spread it relatively evenly, so nobody feels singled out, nobody causes drama, and nobody quits. Most managers spread it evenly, because giving one person 8% and another person 1% requires documentation, justification, difficult conversations, and political risk. Giving everyone 3% requires none of those things, so the system self-levels. not based on who deserves more, based on what's easiest to defend. And that's just layer one. Let's go deeper. Most people think of compensation as a direct transaction. You give effort, you receive money. More effort equals more money. That is not how corporate compensation is structured. Inside most companies, every role sits inside a salary band. A band is a range, a minimum and a maximum that the company has decided is appropriate for that job level. Let's say you're a mid-level marketing analyst. Your band might be $55,000 to $75,000. When you were hired, you came in at $58,000. You're below the midpoint. 3% raise. Now you're at $59,740. Next year, 3%. $61,532. The year after, 3%. $63,378. You're now 4 years in, doing excellent work, and you're still below the midpoint of your own salary band. You haven't even reached what the company itself considers the normal salary for your role. And here's the thing, they won't tell you in your review. Once you hit the top of your band, raises slow down dramatically. Some companies stop them entirely until you're promoted to the next level, because the system isn't designed to pay you more for doing the same job better. It's designed to move you up a ladder or keep you in place. Your effort keeps the machine running. The structure determines where you sit inside it. Now add another layer. Promotion decisions aren't just about performance either. They're about head count. A team can only have so many senior roles. If there are no open slots above you, it doesn't matter how good you are. There's no place to put you. So you stay where you are, doing work that may be above your level, at pay that reflects your current title. You're not being punished. You're just stuck in a shape that has no room for your growth right now. And nobody announces that. Nobody puts it in a memo. You just keep waiting for a promotion that has no opening to land in. And here is where it gets quieter and more uncomfortable. Inflation. In 2022, inflation in many countries hit 8%. The average raise that year was around 4%. That means even people who got a raise lost ground. They made more nominal dollars. They bought less. A 3% raise in a 3% inflation environment is a 0% raise in real terms. You broke even. That's the best case. In a high inflation year, a 3% raise is a pay cut. A quiet one. One that doesn't show up on a pay slip as a negative number, so most people don't register it as a loss. But it is a loss. Your lifestyle costs more. Your rent is up. Groceries are up. The number on your paycheck went up by $155 a month. Everything else went up by more. You're working the same hours, producing the same results, and your actual purchasing power is lower than it was last year. The system gave you a raise, and you still fell behind. Now here's the part that tends to produce a specific kind of quiet anger in people who discover it. New hires. When companies need to fill a position, they don't consult the salary bands of their existing employees. They consult the market, and the market moves faster than internal salary systems. So a company might pay a new hire $78,000 for a role that an existing employee with 3 years of experience is doing for $64,000. Same job, similar skills, $14,000 difference. This is called salary compression, and it's extremely common. The logic from the company's perspective makes sense. They had to compete for the new person. The existing person was already there, already committed, and so unlikely to leave immediately. From your perspective, It means your loyalty is being priced below a stranger's negotiation. And this leads to the conclusion that the data consistently supports job hopping increases salary faster than staying. Studies have shown that employees who stay at the same company for more than 2 years earn, on average, 50% less over the course of their career than those who move every few years. Not 50% less than executives, 50% less than peers who just kept moving. Staying felt safe. It turned out to be expensive. This is the part nobody talks about. When the system doesn't reward you the way you expected, most people don't blame the system. They blame themselves. You start to think, maybe I'm not as good as I thought. Maybe I'm not promotable. Maybe they see something in me that I can't see. Maybe I need to work harder, do more, prove myself again. So you do. You take on extra projects. You stay later. You volunteer for the difficult assignments. You try to make yourself undeniable. And the next review comes. And the number is 3% again. And now the self-doubt has a companion. Confusion. You did everything right. You followed the unspoken rules. You were visible, reliable, valuable. And the outcome didn't change. That confusion is the system working exactly as designed. Because a workforce that is slightly confused about why they're not advancing is a workforce that keeps trying, keeps showing up, keeps producing. The uncertainty is functional. It keeps you engaged in a process that may never deliver the outcome you're working toward. This is not a conspiracy. It's not malicious in any deliberate way. It's the natural result of a structure that was built to manage costs, minimize friction, and maintain productivity. And that was never primarily designed to reflect individual merit. Most people who feel stuck aren't stuck because they failed. They're stuck because the system has a ceiling they can't see, and nobody told them it was there. So here is the truth, stated plainly. Your salary is not a report card on your effort. It is a position inside a structure with bands, budgets, headcount limits, market pressures, managerial incentives, and inflation dynamics, all of which were in motion before you ever sat down at your desk. Effort matters. It determines whether you keep your job. It determines the quality of your work. It determines your reputation over time. But effort, in by itself, does not move you up the structure. Movement inside the structure requires different inputs: negotiation, leverage, timing, visibility to decision makers, and often a willingness to leave. The people who earn significantly more over a career are not necessarily the hardest workers. They are often the people who learned to treat compensation as a negotiation rather than a reward. People who understood that the system responds to leverage, not loyalty. People who moved when the math stopped making sense and moved again when it stopped making sense the next time. They didn't cheat the system. They understood it. And the ones who stayed, who believed that if they just worked hard enough, the number would eventually reflect that. Many of them are still waiting. Not because they were wrong to work hard, but because they were playing by rules that the game wasn't actually using. You can be excellent at your job and economically invisible at the same time. That's not a contradiction. It's the design. The moment you stop waiting for your salary to reflect your effort and start understanding the actual mechanics of how compensation works is the moment you stop being managed by a system you didn't know existed. Most people spend decades inside a machine they never bothered to look at from the outside. You just looked. What you do next is your choice. If this video showed you something that you couldn't see clearly before, subscribe and turn on notifications, and I will see you in the next one.